We're live.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It is Thursday, May 12th, and we are continuing our unexpectedly spicy discussion of the Joint Carbon Emissions Reduction Committee. I'm Representative Kathleen James from Manchester.
Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury.
Richard Bailey, Memorial 2, Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington.
Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howard, Rutland 4.
Dara Torrey, Washington 2.
Laura Spillane, Wyndham 2.
All right.
And
sorry.
Bram.
Bram,
Bram Kopner, 1513 Burlington.
super. Joining us in the room?
Dana Reed Perry from the Craftsman Group.
Yep,
Zachary Moss, Community Service, EVM.
super. All right. So we hit a little impasse about the inclusion of the word electric. And I said that when we got back, I'd take a straw poll. So where are folks at?
So,
Yep.
So, thinking more about it, emissions reduction. So those two words are already well established and addressed by legislation in this building. Years past, current, it's still in play, it's still looked at. To leave this in, I feel would detract from the focus of the committee, which we had agreed or thought we had agreed with energy generation and siting. Therefore, I'm not going to be able to support the bill as written unless we can do something with those words.
Taking out emissions, what are you suggesting?
Reduction.
In the title of the committee and in the duties?
Yeah, because it's already established and originally this was for emissions related to the VW settlement. So,
Well, predates that actually, but yeah.
well,
This John Energy.
that's the last time it was convened, was during that. And having all the past legislation that addresses emissions reduction and carbon, it kind of detracts from my idea of what this committee should be looking at in energy generation and siting. It would still have to go forward if there was any suggestions that were taken up from this committee. It would still have to meet those goals and those initiatives that are already in place.
Okay.
And I still like the idea of the committee, but I think if we don't change that, we're taking away from the focus of what it can do.
Okay. Rep. Sebelia?
I am always happy to look at emissions reduction when it comes to thermal and transportation. I think we are failing in that regard significantly, which is failing Vermonters in terms of keeping up with the energy transition, most especially poor and rural Vermonters. I simply cannot leave an invitation to a group that has proven themselves to be very active and willing to engage on shutting down biomass. And so for that reason, that is electric emissions is the one thing I see so many opportunities for this committee. And that is, it's just a hard line for me. I've seen them engage in other emissions related important emissions related activities in a way that was extremely unhelpful and has not helped us move forward. And so I cannot support allowing that. I would say, Madam Chair, this committee does already exist, right?
Yeah, and if folks are done, I've got some thoughts, but.
So if this committee.
Madam Speaker, may I make a comment?
Yeah, I'm not the speaker, thank God, but yes, please go ahead and make a comment.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I apologize for that accidental demotion. I absolutely understand Representative Sebelia's concern about leaving electric as part of the charge. And I understand Representative Southworth's concern about leaving emissions reductions as part of the charge. I also believe that your observation that the committee is going to be naturally uninclined to look at electricity because it has much bigger carbon reduction issues in thermal and transportation. And also that we are specifically charging this committee with looking at energy siting. So kind of emissions from electricity will be way down their list, and we say they will meet at least 5 times, but as I recall, there's only money for 5 meetings, so it's unlikely they're going to meet many more than 5 times. And it just seems very unlikely to me that this committee is going to get all the way through the list of dealing with how we cite nuclear, how we cite wind, how we cite solar, how we cite hydro, how we cite any other form of generation. They'll get through that and then get through addressing ways to reduce emissions from the thermal and the transportation sectors to finally get to electricity. And the last thing I would say is that even if, and I do want to back up to 2 comments ago by Rep. Sibilia before the break, that there's this group of radicals who oppose biomass. I will agree there are people who are fairly fanatically committed to shutting down biomass electric generation in the state. And there are a lot of very thoughtful people who look at the data and conclude that biomass is not a great way for us to make electricity. There's a full spectrum, and there are people who are fanatically committed to supporting it. But in the very unlikely event that the anti-biomass fringe somehow manages to influence this committee into ignoring all of its other priorities and focusing on that, and also gets them to somehow issue a recommendation that we wind down biomass in Vermont, that recommendation comes to our committee. And our committee can choose to take it up or not. And if we take it up, we can vote it out or not. And if we choose to take it up, and if we vote it out, and if it passes the floor and the Senate and the governor signs it, that would suggest to me that an awful lot of people have decided, far beyond the radical fringe, a lot of people have decided that that's the right move to make. And that whole long chain of events seems spectacularly unlikely to me. So with all due respect, I understand Rep. Sibilia's concern, but it feels disproportionate to the actual threat to me.
Thanks, Bram, or Rep. Kleppner. Okay, so how are folks feeling about this bill as presented with no changes? Give a straw poll, yes?
I guess I would go with it, even though I can express reservations too, but I think having a forum, having this committee be a forum for discussing these issues is a good idea. So I would support it for this.
Okay, so that was, Bram, you're a yes as written, right?
Correct. I am a yes.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So who's a no as written? 5, 4. Okay, so I'm not going to call a vote on this. The committee exists. It can do its work without any statutory changes at all. Now that we've brought it to the attention of the speaker, I'm sure she'll probably appoint members, and so will the pro tem. And hopefully they'll do some good work this summer and fall. We can still send a letter, which would be great. But if folks want a little bit of insight into why I don't want to bring this to the floor on a 5-4 vote, it is because climate and energy policy is unfortunately incredibly polarized and polarizing. It's very divisive. People have a lot of different approaches. People have a lot of different, passionately held beliefs. And I sort of did this work. None of this was really on my radar, right? And folks will remember that I had originally come up with the idea of a task force that we would create that would go beyond the legislature and have members of the administration and members from various important stakeholder and advocacy groups. So I had this idea of a task force that we would create. And the reason I had that idea was that I see in our committee a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, a lot of really strong feelings about the future of energy, about carbon emissions reductions. It's not just about where we put stuff. It's about how we meet the requirements of the Global Warming Solutions Act and the RES, and what's going to happen. Why did we kill the clean heat standard? And all these, this is a big swirling pot of emotions and conflicting facts. And we don't have that much time in here, really. Crossover comes fast. There are new members every session. We're kind of starting from scratch sometimes. There's so much turnover. And so my thought was that we needed a kind of an ongoing, consistent forum. And that was why I had this task force idea, to provide a more thoughtful, maybe less charged, more ongoing year-round way to dive into the stuff that gets us all triggered, like nuclear power. I think everybody on this committee knows at this point, it makes me so nervous. And that could be a great thing for this committee to look at. We have members who have really strong opinions about biomass. We have people who think that reducing carbon pollution is the main point, and people who think it shouldn't be the point anymore. And to me, I understand. You think that the state context is so well established. I don't want to try to speak for you. I understood what you meant. I didn't mean to not characterize your words, but all I'm trying to say is that I was trying to come up with a forum to continue these conversations over the summer and fall, but we don't need to pass this bill to create that forum. The committee exists, it's there. There might be some small things we would tweak about it, but we don't need to do that in order for this committee to do its work. And I think that we can advocate for that, and we can write a great letter to the speaker. And I think the speaker is poised to appoint members. So none of that work will get hijacked. We brought it to light as we should have, but to bring a bill like this to the floor 5-4, to me, only underscores the polarizing nature of climate policy. And I don't want to do that. I don't want our committee to do that. So we already have partisan votes coming out of this committee, unfortunately, and or divided votes, whether it's by party or not. This shouldn't be that. And so I am not going to call it to a vote. Let's write a great letter. I also don't think we should spend a whole lot of time arguing about it over the next couple of days. There have been some suggestions already in the room that I know I'm not going to go for. So why don't we just write a great letter and let this go? And this is a little window into why climate policy is hard.
Madam Chair, thank you for that explanation, and thank you for allowing me to join remotely. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Rep. Kleppner. Travel safe.
See you, Brian.
Thanks, Karen. Bye.
I do believe that the committee was a good idea. I do believe there should be more, the main focus, like we have talked about in committee, should be the energy generation and siting. I don't dismiss the carbon part. I don't dismiss emissions part. That is part of what we live in now, and it is part of what is looked at. My hope and goal was that as this went through the process, whatever came out started to be looked at, all of the legislation with carbon emissions and everything would be part of that going forward. So I still like the idea of the committee. I still like the idea of looking at energy as a whole. But I think that's the start of it. I don't think that's the end of it. I think the end of it is whatever legislation comes out of it. And that includes looking at the carbon emissions and all of the other aspects that we need to look at as it goes forward.
Okay, well, one last floor report.
Yes.
And why don't we spend some time after crossover writing the letter we always plan to write? Advocating for this committee, saying we think it's important, that, we couldn't quite come to agreement on what the statute should look like, but here's here's some things that we really would like to see this committee do over the summer and fall. I mean, I'd be excited for that. Okay, life in the legislature. Thanks everybody for showing up for that. And Alex, did you? Okay, so that's, let me just cross that off my report list. That is, we don't have to do that. Next, all right. So we are down to the committee bill and data centers. And Rep. Sibilia, we've got a new 3.1 draft right on data centers. And we're waiting to hear back from the Environment Committee. And Alex, were you able to find a walkthrough time with Maria?
It said her calendar was open at 1, so I sent her a request. I haven't heard back yet.
Okay. Do you guys want to, why don't you update the agenda? You guys want to tentatively plan on being here at 1 to walk through the data center bill and have another discussion of that? Okay. And just so I'm looking around every corner, I just want to repeat what I said earlier. The committee bill on Burlington Electric and the town energy plans is coming to a vote tomorrow without any further changes. That is my plan. So everybody read that over. And if there's anything wrong with that plan, give me a heads up. Okay, because we don't want to run out of time on okie doke. So just look it over. And if it's anything but just a vote tomorrow, I need to know that today.
That's 26,078.
Yes, the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other one. Okay. I think we can go off live. Oh, sorry. I have to be in a probes at 11:15 this morning. They're going to walk through the 740, the greenhouse gas bill. And they asked me to be there, 1, to hear the walkthrough, and 2, in case there's any questions. So if anybody wants to join or be there, 11:15 to 11:45 in a probes, that's where I will be. And then otherwise than that, let's come back at 1. All right. Thanks, everybody.